Hey everyone, Sawmill Charlie. Well, I'm a little bit late, but no, I wasn't daring in the kitchen making popcorn. I was putting a few things away though. We did have a pretty good storm here about an hour ago. So welcome everybody. I'm glad everybody's in tonight. We're gonna have a great talk show tonight on Friday night. And come on, trying to adjust my screen and all that. Hey Diana, and there's Sandy and Joe and Hope. And Brian, I got a lady wants to talk to you about candles. She may be in here later tonight. And there's Matthew and Stevens. Let's see, Monday. Let me go ahead and drop the link down. Everybody can, I got that pinned and all that. Anybody wants to come in, there's Todd. Hey, it's happening in California. Yeah, Jonathan, I did have quite the cell starter. I finally learned how to prime that hive up to get the most success out of it. Learned a lot of that down there at Bill's place there at Shenandoah Bee Supply. The grafting part I actually helped teach. Learned that back in 2019 from Kent Williams. And the builder part is what is important, and it something that most people don't really talk about. They talk about grafting. Well, you got to have a place to put your grafts, and actually, that's something I'm going to be putting a video out. Maybe if Saturday is a decent time here. I know the video I just put in there, it was able to do that because I happened to have a window of opportunity weather-wise where the sun did come out. It wasn't raining. We've had, I don't know, last 4 days of rain. No honey flow because of the rain. Hey, Stephen. And so I'm going to try to make a video here either Saturday, maybe Sunday, and explain how to set that hive up in more detail. I can tell you right now, if you're setting up a cell builder like that, where you're putting the brood in, that needs to be set up 7 days prior to you grafting. So those brood frames can hatch out, give you those really young nurse bees. And in the meantime, you should be checking the brood for possible queen cells and all. Thank you there, Ian. Hope everything's doing well for you up there too, and being able to keep your mite load in check this year. I don't know if you've seen, I was able to do some grafting in there. I got 28 out of 30 cells, Ian. So they're in the incubator. Hopefully next Thursday that I'll have nice queens hatching out at that time. Hey, Roy. Yeah, Roy, he grafted 2 bars of 16s, got 21 takes. Hey, that's cool for the first graft of the year. Yeah, I did 2 bars of 15. That's what the JZBZ cell takes, and I like those. They're easy to take the, like I said in the video, they're easy to get the cell cap cups off. If you use wood, they like to glue them down to them things. A lot of times you have to use something to pry them off and all that. Hey, Jeremy, how's everything out in Texas? Hopefully it's good. I seen where you're going to have a big crop of, I get what the darn name of that bush is out there that you got your honey and stuff. I know I keep thinking tumbleweed, but that's not it. Hey, Nancy, good to see you. And all. But yeah, I'm really happy with my mesquite. That's right, Jeremy. I need to get some of that honey. I was really interested in what it tastes like. Um, but I was really happy with the results of my first graft for this year, uh, especially with the cell builder. That was always my downfall. A lot of that in previous years when I was grafting was the fact that I was trying to graft too early. Usually, a lot of folks around here would tell me the 15th of May. Well, it would get into the 40s at night, and a lot of times your larvae would, get cold, and I didn't have the right amount of bees in there also. And so, uh, hey, Randy, and so kind of got those different situations tuned in. And as far as my grafting material, this hive this first great big, let's see, that big hive right there is the one that I've been grafting off. She came out of the fall, like, full blast, lots of brood, and temperament's good. And I got right now that picture shows there's 4 honey supers on there with the purple box on top is actually the brood box where I roll those brood frames from the bottom to the top all the time so they won't swarm. And hey there, Brian. Just got done watching your video today. Things are looking mighty fine in your yard. and I have to say one thing, Brian. There's some fat looking queens you got there. They look like they're doing a good job too. So anyway, I pulled the first frame out of there of that hive for grafting material, and brushed the bees off with my brush, and there was a lot of nice jelly in there because that's what you're supposed to be looking for, not eggs or anything else. And it was, as I call it, juicy, where there's plenty of rural jelly where that leg is floating up on top there, or the larvae, I mean. And you can take your Chinese grafting tool and really, with pretty much with ease, go right in there and pick that larvae right up and everything. So that was one of the good things about the grafting, is that I had a really good frame with the right age larvae and all that. Yeah, there's Jason here. What's Jason saying here? I gotta ever have grafts take good in the starter. Okay, Jason. So what's your did you take and keep those cells in the starter until they're capped? Or are you also doing mine's just a regular queenless? Hey Todd.
Hey, what's up, Charlie?
Good. My cell starter is a queenless cell starter, Jason, and you might be running a queen right cell starter finisher possibly. Um, I'm not ever had that problem. I always let mine cap. And the reason I put it in an incubator is like I said in the video, they will put webbing or burr comb between the two cells. And it is a real pain trying to take a razor blade knife to try to trim that off. In most cases, you'll break them. So once I did that once or twice, I said, all right, I'm done. I'm making a incubator up. So how are you doing with your grafting? I think you're grafting, aren't you, Todd?
Yeah, I'm really done though. By now, it's the drones. I don't know. The drones thin out around here about this time of year, so I'm just gonna go with what I've got. Um, I have 16 more coming out Sunday, so that's I grafted very small this year, 24 grafts. Um, I'm gonna be adopting some bees here pretty soon. A guy from the bee club I'm in called me and said, "Hey, you want to make some money and get some bees?" I said, "Well, that sounds pretty good." And the problem is there's a an area. Oh, it's right up in the foothills of the Sierras that Caltrans, the Department of Transportation, uses. It's about a 2 or 3 acre parcel right next to the highway. It's full of bee equipment, and the bee equipment is from a couple of bee thieves from the last 5 years. And if I say there's hundreds of pallets out there, I would probably be short on the count, but there's hundreds and hundreds of boxes. The only problem is those boxes have been out there in that weather for anywhere from 3 to 5 years.
Are they rotten?
Some are, some aren't. The newest ones that have been out there for a couple of years aren't too bad, but not something I'd want to keep. But there's frames in all the boxes, there's comb in all the boxes, and there's bees in a lot of boxes. And so they're trying to sell that property, but the only problem is the weeds have grown so tall that you don't know what you're stepping on, and it's rattlesnake country right there. So we're waiting for Caltrans to go out there and take a heavy loader or something and just trash all the weeds, and then we could get to the hives. We counted just where we could access bees, probably 20 colonies, and we could only get to maybe half of the stacks of boxes. So
yeah, that's something that I don't even think about. There's rattlesnakes in there or nothing like that.
No, I was nervous walking around in it just last weekend. So
yeah, I want to say hi to Grammy and Barry Kind Bees, which is let's see, his initials is JP, and his girlfriend Kathy. Met them down at Bill's place. And Jason says he starts them in a queenless starter for 2 days, then made it queen right. So it sounds like to me that you got a queen. I presume that you're going to put a box on the bottom, queenless on the bottom with a double screen board, and then a queen right box up on top. If that's correct, Jason, let me know. Or if Jason, if you would like, why don't you just come on in and we'll talk about all that. And
I'm wondering if there's not enough young bees in there.
Possibly.
If it's
or nurse. I would say if he puts it upstairs, there's not enough nurse bees up there to keep things going. If he says they're drying out. Personally, I would keep it in a queenless hive and let them cap them out in 6 days.
I do the what Bob Benny does, the queenless cell starter and queen right finisher.
Right.
I've never gone wrong with that.
And all. Now, how do you? Hey, Dodd. Hey, Kathy. What's happening? And Ben. And let's see. Yes, he says he's doing what you're doing, I believe. Okay. Hey, Clay. I'm wondering whether he's got enough bees in there. Now, all right, let me ask you that. Let me pick your brain. All right, when you put the bottom box on the bottom board, which is going to be queenless, how are you setting that hive up? How many frames, and what are you putting in there? And how are you setting that hive up just to begin with before you drop the graft in?
The hive that I pick is reasonably strong.
Yeah.
So what I do is I'll go throughout the yard and I'll find frames that can be donated, but frames of dark brown colored brood, stuff that's going to hatch pretty quick.
Right.
I'll put 3 or 4 of those in there.
Yeah. Look at Todd. Look at what he says here.
What's that?
no brood in the finisher. There's your problem right there. He ought to be putting some brood up there and maybe some open frame brood to bring those nurse bees up there and around the finish. Once
True.
they start the cells, they will always finish them. But
Yep.
you need to have an attractant up there, which is some open brood
Yep.
larvae and stuff like that for them nurse bees to come up and congregate. Put that open brood next to that cell and
Yeah.
they'll finish them cells out. And then I would say you would definitely want a pollen frame up there next to your cells.
Mhm.
And
I do one on each side.
that's what I did this year.
Yeah.
Two fresh, nice pollen
Yep.
frames right out of another hive.
Yep.
And they
Feed.
say to put a brood frame or two in there.
Yep.
And I would maybe feed them a little bit.
I put an internal, a frame feeder in there.
Internal feeder, or like for me on that nuke, I made that inner cover years ago when I was grafting 4 or 5 years ago. And I made them extra holes where I could put a mason jar over that. And it also has a little bit of a shim. And I put the brood on the other side of the pollen.
Well, I like what Bob uses is the double screen board. That's the key, I think. So you make the bottom box full of brood and full of bees. And when you think it's full of bees, shake more frames of bees in there. Then you put the double screen board on top of that, and that's the bottom box. Then you put the queen right section on top of the double screen board, and then you roll through it for 2 days, and then you switch. You put the queen down below, you put a queen excluder in the middle, and you put the cells, the queenless starter on top of that, and then those bees will go back and forth through the excluder.
It sounds like to me, it's like with me with my queenless starter, is that I had a ton of bees that were associated with that hive box.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the brood comb in there was completely empty, nothing, except for maybe some nectar.
Yeah.
I pulled I had 2 mediums. I pulled the 5 frames out of the bottom. I dropped in 5 frames of cap brood. Those bees were, you know how bees go, they're crazy. And then you put that brood in there, and a pheromone smell hits them. We're okay for now, you know.
Yeah.
And then I put the second medium on there, put 2 more brood frames on the outer walls, then 2 frames of pollen. Then I put my graft in there. Even with, I kind of look at a hive where you got bees in the hive, and do you have enough bees to where it kind of like covers the frames, you can barely see them. And that to me is a well-populated hive. Well, it was kind of that way when I was setting that hive up. But then I went to these big boy hives right here. And that's where you got the brood up in that, like that top first one there, it's got purple. That's where my brood frames are. Those are brood boxes on top. I took the bees, and because they're brood frames, you got your nurse bees up there. And there might be nurse bees clinging up to the inner cover. So I took my Pro Nuke over there, and every inner cover, I shook the bees off the inner cover. And then I took some of those nurse bees, the frames that have nurse bees on them, shook them in there. Yeah. And I filled that container up. I say at least a couple pounds of bees.
Mm-hmm.
And they sat there. They did not fly. They might try to crawl up the wall. If there was any of them that flew, they were the worker or foragers.
Yeah.
And then I took that thing over there, and I just literally poured the bees on top of that nuke. I actually, they poured it on there, and I don't know, they were like, 3 or 4 inches deep on top of them frames. And then they kind of finally got down in there. They were probably going out the front a little bit. And then I closed them up, and then I put that juice jar on them. And then a good portion of them hanged out on the front of that box for 3 or 4 days, even in the rain. They look like fish scales. They're all lined up, and all their wings are hanging down, so all the rainwater would shed. and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
It's what you were saying earlier. You could be the best grafter in the world, but if you don't have a good builder, it's not going to do you any good.
that was
You
my
know?
problem for years until
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And because Bill had a 8 frame hive down there, and I looked at it, I'm like, hey, you got all kinds of bees in there. You know, the bees are in the frames, the bees are up on top. And he was like, nope, put 6 more pounds of bees in there. And they were, like you said, they all went down in there and they went out to the front door and hanged on the front of that box. And they
Mm-hmm.
closed them up and everything. And then that night, I'm glad we did that. We had forgot about closing the windows in the shop because there was a storm coming. So we went back there that night about, I don't know, 8 o'clock. It was just about dark, 8:30.
Mm-hmm.
And we checked those hives, and they had a wad of bees on the front of that hive about that big, and they were all
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah.
And that night it got down to 40 degrees at night. It was one of them where the storm came in and plummeted the nighttime temperatures.
Yeah.
And that was my problem years ago. I haven't grafted for 3 years because I just time constraints and discouraged.
Mm-hmm.
And because I didn't have enough bees in those boxes in that cell builder, I didn't know how to set it up properly. And
Mm-hmm.
I did graft one time where I had 100%. And I think what it was a nuke that it happened to have the bee powers in there was so thick that I guess they were maybe on the verge of swarming.
Yep.
And I think I found the queen. I don't know. I don't remember what I did at this time. And I dropped that graft in and it worked out fine. I think I might have had 15 cells or something like that. So that's, I'm really tickled that I finally dialed it in as far as understanding what you need to do. And
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things that I want to do here this week if I get the weather, because it's supposed to rain tomorrow morning. It rained already here tonight.
Lucky
And
you.
yeah, it's a double edged sword. We really need the rain.
It's dry as a
And
bone here.
yeah, well, we've had probably, if he hasn't, my son put up a rain gauge. So I looked at it and I say with the rain that we had this afternoon here about an hour or two ago, it's probably at 2 inches at least
Mm.
of rain
Yeah.
and all that. So,
Well,
James McNally, what is happening with you? We want you to come in and give us an update on what's happening up in um, Canada there with you and your bees. I know that you have to rebuild this year. Hopefully, your rebuilding process is in full swing and all that. And there's Frank from up in New Jersey. Let it be Frank. That's a new title for him. Doing pretty good and all that. So you're doing cells, and then where are you at in your beekeeping in California?
so I'm not going to have a good orange crop this year, and I knew it because I came out of winter with like 12 colonies, and not all of those were thick. They were decent, but I'm not going to have a big crop. So it's kind of a rebuilding year. I should be able to get a pretty good wildflower crop with what I have now. I have all of my colonies are pretty thick. As a matter of fact, I've already split my splits once, and I'm probably going to do it again tomorrow. And then I'll pretty much use up all those boxes I had stuck on the side of the house. Dead outs and stuff like that. All that drawn comb. I'll be able to use most of that, and I could get back better. Now, here's the thing I started thinking about is, I think what I might do is go doubles through wildflower and then shake them down into singles, get them ready for winter time, and then start fresh again in what? Well, for me, that would be late January, early February. And do it again. I might just, kind of like what Ian does, put a box on top, split that down after a while, and then super them after that. So
Yeah.
I think that's probably what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Well, you have to kind of, it's like everything else in beekeeping, kind of figure out what kind of works for you and your area and the timing and all that stuff. Let's let's look at this, what Jason's talking about here. I don't think he's got it quite dialed in there. Um, he's doing a queen right cell builder or cell builder finisher. And when you're using the queenless,
Next year.
um, well, looks like Todd lost connection here. So I'm going to go ahead and say this. If you're doing it, here we go. You're back. All
Wow.
right. From what I can read here, if he's doing a queen right cell starter finisher, I would be putting in capped brood in the bottom,
Yep.
no open brood. I would put in 2 frames of pollen in there.
Yep.
I would put in, I'll say, a 2 frame feeder, sugar water feeder in that bottom box. So you're going to have, let's say if you're running 10 frame, you're going to actually have 8 frames in there.
Mm-hmm.
So out of the 8 frames, you're going to be 6. You're going to have 6. You're going to have 2 frames of pollen. So now you're down to 6.
1 frame of the grafting frame. So
then you have, so you're going to have down to, let's say, and you're going to have 1 frame of grafting. So you're going to have 5 frames of capped brood. Now,
one of those, though, one of the 5 has to be foundation, because when you feed them, they're
yeah. So now we're down to about 4 frames of
4.
capped brood.
Yeah.
On a frame of foundation.
Yep.
Now, would you do this? Would you put all that brood in there and wait 5 to 7 days for it to hatch? Or would you go in there and make, in 3 or 4 days, make sure they haven't made any voluntary queen cells?
Well, yeah, you have to go back in there a few days later to make sure that they haven't made any cells. But then you could start right after that. You might have to check it one more time, but you can.
While the graft is in there.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. So that's something that I'm going to cover on my video.
Mm-hmm.
Is with a queenless cell builder, you should start about 7 days in advance of grafting.
But here's the trick, though. If you could get frames of only capped brood, if you get, in the springtime, you could get full sheets of capped brood. And you get the dark brown color. That's what you want, because those are the ones that will be emerging. And if you, instead of like the yellowish color, you don't want to put that in there. I mean, if you have to, you have to, but it's not going to hatch for a while or emerge for a while. So you want that old brood in there. And generally those frames don't have the different stages of development going on. So
yeah.
But you still check just in case.
Hey, JB. But anyway, to get, prep that bottom box this way. Check, do it about 3 days, let's say 3 days, then go in there, check for queen cells, voluntary queen cells. Then put your graft in there.
Yeah.
And I would leave that grafting frame in there for 3 days, to give it a nice long draw. And then, of course, you're going to put your double screen board, and then your queen right box on top. And you're going to put the entrance out the back. So the foragers and stuff will come around through the day and go back into the front of the hive. And then your top box will lose some population, and your bottom box where your graft is going to increase in population, which is good.
Yep.
and they'll have nectar coming in along with the feeder in there and all that stuff. And they'll draw you some wax out too.
Hmm.
And I would wait, like I say, at least 2 days, if not three.
I would
And
do too, because I've always had the problem, if I left them in a long time, like 3 days or more, they'll start making bridge comb between the cells.
yeah, they
So, so yeah, two
that is,
days, that's good enough.
that is a real pain. That stuff is.
Two
All right,
days,
so
they'll draw that cell down enough where, it's good. And then you just rotate the boxes, put the cells up top, and then you're good to go.
yeah, so all right, so let's say 2 days for
Hmm.
Jason. Then Jason, take your top box off. Take the um, detach the bottom box from your bottom board, real gentle like, because your cells are
Hmm.
really tender right now.
Hmm.
Take that box and put it on a upside down lid over here off to the side, really gentle. Just set it down as like feathers, just barely, don't jiggle it at all. Then take your other box where your queen is at, put it on the bottom. Put a queen excluder on.
Hmm.
Take the other box that's got your cell in there. You've got well, let's see. I would just go ahead and put it on top of the queen excluder, and then take off your double screen boards, which will be on top of that. And there'll probably be a lot of bees hanging on that. So
Oh
you want
yeah.
to don't pound it on the box. Shake it in midair. Do not pound the box. If you hit that box, you're going to shake the larvae and them cell grafts loose, and you're done right there. You can start
Yeah.
all over again.
Yeah.
That's crucial. And shake those bees off in there. Don't shake them, I'll shake them into the box because they're going to be nurse bees. And if there's still some residual bees on there, shake them out on the front of the ground. You
Hmm.
might, if you want to be nice, you could put like a piece of cloth down so they can walk up into the hive, and then close it up. And they should be capped in the next 4 days.
Yep.
And then it's like Todd says there, they put that bridge comb or cross comb between the two cells.
Yeah.
I've had it done to me. I've used a razor blade knife to try to trim all that off. It takes a tremendous amount of time and patience. And
Hmm.
and I don't care how well you do it, you might get a few of them that are just fine. And then you'll get the other ones that the cocoon's going to break on you, because they'll have if this is the cocoon sitting upwards like this, and this is your capped off part, they will bridge that comb over top. And now you're trying to actually cut it out of a wad of wax, and it's a pain.
Yeah.
So that's where, as soon as they're capped off in 6 days, I take them to an incubator. Whether you go to Home or Tractor Supply and get a chicken incubator, or whether you maybe make something like I do out of a refrigerator and put them in there, put the water to them, 93 degrees, 93, 94, right in that range.
He's asking about the queen right side of things. So you really don't have to do much with the queen right side at all from the very beginning. At least I don't. I make sure the queen's in there, obviously, and she's going to have a couple frames of brood going, whatever. But when you tear it apart at the second day that it's been on there, you take the bottom box is the queenless cell starter. You take it off. I use the double screen board. So what I do is I put after I take the queen right box off at the beginning, then I put the queen right box down on the pallet. Then I take the double screen board, and then I'll bang it on the queen right box. Then I put take that off and put the excluder on. Then I put the cells on after that. The bottom of the queen, or the bottom of the dividing board, you want to turn that over and not see anything but bees. I mean, a couple inches deep of bees. That's when you know your builder's adequate. So
Now, what's that top? When are you seeing what now? You're seeing a couple inches of bees on what? The
On
double
the
screen?
bottom side of the dividing board. So when you take that dividing board off, you know,
Yeah. You're talking
I
about a
built,
double screen board, not you're
correct.
saying
Yeah.
dividing
Yeah.
board.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah. The double screen board. There's going to be an inch or so gap because, you know, you want to, I built my own. So I had 3/4 inch wood that went around the edges. And that's all you could see is bees. And plus, bees will be hanging off. So you've got a lot of bees on there. As a matter of fact, I have, I drilled 2 circles. It just looks just like what Bob Benny did on his boards, 2 circles in that thing. When I turn it up to look the inner side of that with all the bees, I can't see through it. You know, you can't see any daylight through it because there's so many bees. But yeah, you're right. You don't want to pound that on the cell box. You want to pound it on the queen right box, and that's what I do. And then they all, and
Yeah.
at that point you don't have to worry about those bees because you're putting a queen excluder on there, and those bees are going to go back and forth anyway.
Right. And like you say, when you put you got the queen right box on the bottom, queen excluder. You're going to put the box that has your graft in on top, really, really lightly and smoothly, and not jiggle it any at all. And when you put the queen excluder in there, those nurse bees will go back up into the top where the queen cells are, where the open and where the cat brood is. You might pull a frame of open larvae up there to attract them, and they'll finish themselves out.
Yeah.
And that's when I would take them out of there after 6 days and put them in incubator.
I'm skipping the incubator part this year. I'm going to raise them to cells. Day 13, day 14, and then put them in a queenless.
So you're going to cap them off in that top box, and then you're going to sit them in there. You're going to pull them out and use them as cells about 2 days before they hatch.
Yep. Yeah. I did that in the first round. It worked out good.
I've done that. I would put the cells in a 2-frame mating box, and that's when you as Fat Bee Man used to say tinkeritis sets in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, did they hatch? Did they hatch? And then I'm in there and like, well, there's a lid. Okay, I can see that. Well, still have to watch. See, we have to find this virgin queen. And sometimes some people say that when you disturb that hive like that, that for some reason they will kill that virgin queen.
Yeah, they blame everything on the queen. If you smoke them too much, they'll kill the queen. It's all the queen's fault. You know, just about anything. I'm see in this case, I'm not doing 2-frame mating nukes or anything like that. I'm doing another round of splits. So I had eight colonies that I originally split. Then I split them again. So now I have those 16 that need to be split. So I'll split those 16 off, and I'll use 16 of the 24 cells that I have. Hopefully that if I end up with 24, in those 16 that I'm splitting, and then I'll have to make up eight queenless colonies somewhere somehow, or and then I'll put those cells in there.
James, you made it in.
Well, I don't know. Can you guys hear us?
I can, yeah, barely. What are you doing? Driving to Ian's for coffee? I say, what are you doing? Driving to Ian's to get a cup of coffee? He's got it. Something ain't connecting yet.
So at the end of the weekend, I should have, at the end of this process, probably Sunday or Monday, I'll be back up to 53, and then plus the other 8, so that'll be 61.
He says he is. That's what he's doing. Oh my.
So I don't know. I think I'm going to stop where I'm at with that. I kind of
I already got text people text me when you having queens, when you having queens,
oh geez.
and there's Mr. Bill.
So it's for me, it's kind of like at that point in your life where you don't want to crawl up on a ladder anymore. That's where I'm at with the amount of bees, that I have to juggle with work and whatever, and the heat, and I don't want to take another step on the ladder, you know.
Well, I think that's where everybody kind of here. Everybody had big uh what would you say? They're starting
Aspiration.
out and they want we're going to get bigger. We're going to get bigger. We're going to get bigger. We're going to be 100 hives. We're going to be 300 hives. We're in and all that kind of stuff. And then as they get up, like you say, to 50 hives or more, then they realize the amount of time and work involved to maintain that
Mm-hmm.
relatively properly. And you have to get the infrastructure to do that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then we find out, okay, well, maybe we don't want to get that far. Like Brian out there at Flower Street in Denver, he's at 75 and he wanted, I think, some more, but he said, I'm happy right where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
And he's full time as far as being retired and that kind of thing. So that's where I'm at. I was up to close to at one time almost 50. I think it was 45 hives, and that was including mating boxes and nuke boxes and 10 frame boxes and everything. I was juggling everything all at the same time. And then it's like, as time passes, like I just can't keep up with all this stuff. So I cut back to like 34 for quite a long time there with just nukes and 10 frames, selling nukes and selling honey. And then you had the stress load, or at least I did, in selling nukes to people, dealing with people, making sure that, hey, here you are, you took this nuke, you've kept it for basically a year almost, you've petted it along, you've treated it, you fed it, and then you sell it to them and they could care less, it seems like. And they do so many things wrong and they'll kill it, and
Yeah.
I got to the point here in the last couple of years, I'm like, and I would be sitting there stewing over, I need you to get these nukes out of here quick before they hit the trees. And they didn't seem to understand the urgency of that. And I'm like, I just can't put up with that anymore. So last year I had my queen issues that I had, my die off issues. I ordered a bunch of queens, 10 nukes for replacement and expansion because I had nukes already promised to people.
Mm-hmm.
That if I hadn't done that, I would have used my own. But so sold my nukes and I reorganized my business plan, as you would call it, where I'm in more of honey production. And this year, obviously, I've gotten back into queen rearing. It's very self-gratifying. I enjoy it. It's kind of like playing a game between you and the bees. Are you a good enough grafter? Yes. Yes, we will make 100% or 95% acceptance rate here. And then when you get to the point where that queen hatches, mates, comes back, and then you got this beautiful queen and fat and sassy, and she's laying up a beautiful, huge pattern. And I'm like, hey, I had something to do with that.
Yeah.
And that's what I like. And I've de-stressified my beekeeping and kind of made the fun again. As far as it's still a little bit of work, certain times, and it's more of I keep it as a sideline business, but it's sort of a sideline hobby business. And it just makes it a lot more fun. And now I'm down around 28 hives instead of 34. Then that ain't a whole lot less, but 2 or 3 hives makes a big deal when it comes to medication, sugar, water in the fall, and all, and touching all them highs makes a big deal and everything. At least for me, it is because I'm doing it all by myself. It's like you, Todd, you're doing it all by yourself.
Yeah, and I have a full-time job I got to deal with, so I don't,
And
I don't get home until.
I got a full-time job. I think it was my job. And occasionally I will say, I got to take off this afternoon and I've got to get all this done because the bad weather's coming in and it's some of that must do things that I just have to get it done.
Yeah.
So
I'm tinkering with taking it early out in 2 more years. If I do that, then I could do more colonies, but I don't know. We'll have to see what there's a lot of things that have to happen between now and then. So we'll see what happens. But I know 50, 55, 60 maybe. That's my number right now. I can handle that. But when I get up to 75 or 80, that's just kind of puts me just over the edge.
Yeah. Now Roy was saying about grabbing on new drawn comb is pretty rough. He thinks that's why he had some misses. Well, you're going to have misses.
Yeah.
Occasionally you'll have maybe 100% success rate, depending on how many you're grafting. With me, I did 30 and I had 28 success, and that's average or not average. I'll say above average. 100% is, you might get 100% maybe one time out of a year, maybe two, but new comb is a little softer. Depends on whether you're using Chinese grafting tool and making sure that the tongue is flexible and all. And it also depends where, like I said earlier, the frame I picked was nice and juicy, meaning a lot of drool jelly in there makes it a whole lot easier. And my frames were not new. They were, a year or so old. They were dark brown. So let's see.
Charlie, have you seen that video that Joe May had about conditioning the Chinese grafting tools?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was a really interesting video. And that's when I buy a package, you buy like 25 of them, only about 5 of those will be any
That's
good
right.
to use.
That's right.
So those 5, I sand them down with the fine sandpaper and all that stuff.
Now I'll tell you who had even a better video, and I don't know why he took his videos down. Is that Jason from New River Bees Company? That he does.
Jason Bragg.
Yeah, he had a video of sanding that tip down, and he said, learn how to take this thing apart.
Yeah.
And keeping all the parts from being lost.
Yeah.
And then he actually had like a really super close-up video of it, how he was back dragging that tongue on, I'll say 800 grit paper, 1,000 grit paper.
Yeah.
Sandpaper. Some people say use a woman's thing. I don't think they make 1,000 grit
emery board.
Emery board, yeah.
Yeah.
I tried that, but I think mine were just too gritty. And so I happen to find when I find one that works with my thumbnail test, that's the one where I put a piece of tape around it. And that's my, I had one like that and it finally flew apart. It actually, the tongue, I guess, dried out or split. It didn't just break off as far as unglued, because if the tongue unglues from the pencil part, you can still glue it back with some crazy glue. So how's Mr. Bill? Did you get all your rain down there that you thought you were going to get? You there?
Yeah, we got over 5 inches.
Really? Got that much down there?
Yeah, we're out of a drought now.
We got about 2 inches this week. And
yeah, we got that real heavy rain, and then it didn't rain a day, and then it rained the next day, and it's kind of like skipped every other day this week. So we've been getting rain almost every day this week, every other day this week.
That happened to me last year. I couldn't graft because I have Saturday, Sunday off, and it seemed like it rained every Saturday and Sunday.
Yep.
And then
So today was, upper 70s. Tomorrow's supposed to be 64. Sunday's supposed to be 72. It's just, we're going to graft Sunday. So.
Yeah, I here today it was foggy in the morning. It's humid all day. It rained in the morning for a little bit. And then here at 6 o'clock, I guess it was, it rained for about a half an hour, pretty darn hard and steady. And all that. And tomorrow they say it might have a chance of raining in the morning. And hopefully tomorrow afternoon it might be sunny. I want to make another video about maintaining the cell builder.
I'll bet you anything that what you guys got in the last 24 hours sounds like it's around 7 inches. I bet we didn't even get that much total this year.
Yeah, I was watching the news and they said it was a little bit over 5. That's what we ended up getting. Because we had flash flooding and everything else.
Now out in Western Maryland, they're close to West Virginia. Now they had some serious flooding up there, but you can see that's where the bulk of the storm went. We were over here in kind of like the Showery area, 100 miles away.
Yeah, the Shenandoah was out of its banks. A little creek down here near me, Narrow Patches Creek, that dumps into the Shenandoah right out here. It was well out of its banks. So.
We definitely don't get that around here.
Oh, we get it around here a lot. So.
It doesn't rain here too much.
But see, we don't see it for a couple of days afterwards because everything coming out of the mountains of West Virginia and off of the Blue Ridge coming down to come into the Shenandoah.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we see it. See all the water. So
I don't.
Charlie, going back, have you ever watched that guy Ralph Jones? Have you ever watched his videos?
Yeah.
Oh man, that guy's a hoot. I wish he would. He stopped making videos, but man, he was pretty fun to watch. Ralph Jones the third, I think it was.
Yeah, he was, man. I wondered if he was all there sometimes.
Well, he was right there near the end. He was talking about people listening to him from his cell phone or something like that, and yeah, but man, he had some good knowledge.
Yeah, he did.
So what was he? What did you find that was interesting with him?
Oh, he went over a whole bunch of stuff. What was that, Bill? He made 7 frame boxes. I think.
7 frame boxes, and those were his nukes.
Yeah, he preferred 7 frame to, I think, I don't think those were his nukes. I think those were his main hive bodies. I don't know. I can't. It's been years since I watched it.
It's been a long time, but he liked the 7 frame box.
Yeah.
Just like I like the 8 frame box for a nuke.
Yeah. And his bottom board was the same dimension as a box, and it had a hole cut out in the wall, so it looked like it had a entrance reducer, but it was just a 3 inch or so long hole.
Yep. Yeah. Well, if it was even 3 inches.
Yeah. But yeah, he had all kinds of videos out. He had 4 or 5 years worth of videos. I watched those during COVID too.
I was gonna say we'll try this again. Can you guys hear us now?
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you. A little bit of background noise, but I can hear you.
Oh, that's because we're on a road trip.
It's the road noise, the coffee road noise.
Yeah.
So well, what do you do? You've got no bees to look after. You might as well go on a road trip.
There you go.
So what are you doing, James? Are you able to rebuild?
Well, that's part of the reason we're on a road trip. So,
Oh, going over to the big boys to get some bees, huh?
well, I don't know if we're gonna get any bees, but actually, one of the people who subscribe to my channel and actually listen to us here quite a bit, she reached out to us and says, "Yeah, I've got some hives if you'd be interested." So we said absolutely. So we're on our way over to look at these, and if everything goes good, pick them up, bring them home.
That's good. How many
Hey,
hives?
James, did you have a big problem with wax moth at all?
Nope. I think I've only seen maybe one or two hives where I've ever had a wax moth in it.
Oh, okay.
So how many hives does the lady have for you?
Well, she's got 10 that we're going to pick up, but she already has them in double deeps, and she's
Wow.
telling me that there is anywhere between 4 and 7 frames of brood in each one. So
Wow.
if that is the case, we're going to split them down right there and then bring them home.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll get you.
So what you pulled out of the box is completely gone. Or well, not the box, the barn. Whatever you pulled out of the barn is completely gone.
Oh no, I got one.
Oh, that one's still there, huh? Okay.
That one's still going. Yeah, actually, she's going actually quite well. So
Oh,
That's-
good.
That's a seed hive.
Well, wasn't that your
Well,
breeder,
you got-
James?
I do believe she has a red dot on her. Yep.
Wow.
I think she was the breeder that you were breeding off of.
I do believe so. So we'll see what's in there. Most of the ones from last year, of course, shouldn't have had the red dot on them. So they should have had a green one. So she is one of the original queens.
Wow.
Yeah. At least you're making a comeback.
Oh, you can't keep a good beekeeper down.
That's true.
And
Yeah,
and any beekeeper, I was gonna say, any beekeeper that tells you he's never ever gonna get bees again is a liar.
Yeah.
Well, what is it? Are you having the flow up there now in your area, or is it you guys
Oh,
just
heck
getting
no.
started?
We're
just
getting started. Yeah, the leaves are. Well, I'd say most of the trees, the leaves are out. We got the dandelions going really hard right now. The plum trees, they've all in blossom, and the apple trees and stuff like that probably will blossom here again in, I'm going to say,
You there?
a week. They're blossoming.
Right. Well, that's good. I mean, at least you're getting these bees prior to flow season, and then you can, like you say, split them, and you'll have all the right food and stuff coming in for them to flourish and everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was. We were talking last year this time about me and my bees and the queens and stuff like that, and seemed like these first 4 hives right behind me here on my pictures, they're the best hives, and they're a second-year queen, and the rest of them down through there were second year, but they just didn't, as I learned to scrutinize the queens, they just weren't performing at peak performance, and definitely want to, I've requeened some of them already. I got queens in the incubator now, getting ready to get those queens up and running when they hatch and requeen the rest of these hives. And I'm really considering probably going to requeening on a yearly basis in order to keep my hives up to peak performance. That's my goal. I want everybody to be the same as far as strength and performance and everything.
Yep. That's the way to do it.
Well, I'm learning the reasonings behind the commercial guys, why they do certain things, because, you know, they're trying to make a living and get that cash crop in so they can, you know, make a living like everybody else.
Yeah.
It's like James dropped out again. But that's what I found, and hopefully I can. I've been grafting off this one big tall hive with my best girl, and temperament's pretty decent, and production is definitely decent. And
I'm gonna have to order some honey from you again this year. I need some of that honey again.
Oh yeah,
Maybe I'll ship you some. We could do a swap.
yeah, we can do that. I like. I was down at Bill's the first time in that splits class helping out down there. I came home with a sore throat and whatever, and I got that bottle of blue curl honey that you sent me, and it had crystallized a little bit, but I put it in the warming box downstairs, and I was chug-a-lugging on that, you know, to let that honey soothe my throat and maybe try to, you know, kill some bacteria too along with it.
I have 6 jars of that left in my pantry, and I could hammer nails with it.
Really?
Yeah, and I cannot get it to decrystallize. I put it in warm water. I put it in my honey warmer. Nothing works. It's just solid as a rock. I don't know.
I don't know. I liked it. It tastes like mine.
Huh.
You know, I thought.
Well, I'll send you some orange.
Yeah, orange would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you hear? I bought some tickets.
You're coming to Nobby?
I got a hotel reservation. I got my tickets. I was looking at flights this morning, and I'm not going to buy my flights for a while. Let's see which way the prices go. But yeah.
That's cool. I'm glad to hear it.
I might take 2 suitcases and use one for clothes and the other one for knickknacks and stuff that I can, you know, get.
Right.
But
yeah.
And I talked to John Hill just a few hours ago. I made an order for an uncapping tank, so I got that coming. And
yeah. Are you coming in a day sooner or so? Hopefully
yes.
we can.
Yeah.
We got to get, I don't know whether Becky is looking into those rooms yet or not, or along with Melissa.
Yeah, her and Melissa are working on
it. I want to
try. They talked the other night.
That's good. I want to try to. I haven't booked my motel or hotel, and usually I'm driving out, so usually I arrive on Tuesday evening because that gives me all day Thursday to kind of rest up and go to the party.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I like to, you know, hopefully we can find someplace close to the expo center that isn't too expensive and maybe have to charge a little bit.
I think I'm at the Fairfield Inn. So I'm there.
You're right over there by us.
Yeah. And then I'm going to fly in Wednesday. Well, probably late afternoon. I'll get in. And then I don't know what time does the show end on Saturday?
5 o'clock, is it?
Yeah, 5 o'clock. It ends about an hour earlier on Saturday.
So right now, what I was looking at this morning, it looks like the latest flights that fly out of Louisville would be like 5:30. So I'd probably have to leave about 3 o'clock or something, get to the airport. So that's good enough, you know. And I really want to go walk around the floor. I've heard speakers before, and there might be one that I might be interested in, but I just want to see what's out there, what's available.
I'll tell you, if we can get this, you know, get a nice big room this year for our party, you know, having everybody here that's on this chat tonight and on the other chats. And that's really where we all congregate at one spot. To me, that's one of the best times there is, where we all finally get to meet each other in person
Yeah.
And last year or this year, we had a really nice time. We had a lot of door prizes,
Yep.
and I gave out some honey. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that this coming year. I got rid of all my bears and things, and so I had a really good time. We got to meet everybody, and then the next day is the at 12:30, I think it is. They'll probably open the doors up for the convention. And like you say, Todd, I mean, I've seen pretty much all the speakers. And when you buy a 3-day ticket, you'll get your key code in where you can listen to them.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. Unless there's a few of them that you might want to see in person.
The only thing that gets me, and it's fine, I understand. I've got to spend a lot of money to fly over there, stay over there, and plus the tickets.
Yep.
How am I going to take stuff home? I'm flying, So I'm really just going there to look at everything. I've got some honey money burning holes in my pocket. I'd like to take it over there, and maybe I could ship out of there via UPS. I might be able, I have a pirate ship account. Maybe I can, at the hotel, I could box it up, and if they've got a little business computer thing there, print out a label and ship it to myself. But, I can't get any big stuff, which kind of sucks.
Minnesota Mike, yes, I'll be staying at the Hilton where I normally stay. I've got Hilton points, and I looked into it where I can stay 5 nights for $400. I don't quite have enough Hilton points to stay completely free like I did 2 years ago. But
one thing, when I went to the Missouri
conference.
Show, the Missouri conference, when I was flying back, so I fly from here to Dallas, and so on the way back from Dallas to here, right, like the last 25 minutes or so, the flight attendant gets on the mic and starts talking about this credit card, and it's a special offer on this flight only.
Yeah.
And it was like for, I don't know, I can't remember the number of points, 60,000 points, which according to her would be enough for a free round ticket anywhere in the continental United States. And there's no minimum on this credit card that you could purchase. Like, you don't have to buy like $1,000 worth of stuff and pay for it. I could go to the gas station down the street and buy a 25-cent candy bars aren't 25 cents anymore. Well, I could buy a $1 candy bar with this thing, and I get the points and then pay off the candy bar and rip the card up, and then here's my free trip to Louisville. And I sat there and I thought about it, and I said, nah, there's got to be a catch. And so I didn't do it. And so one of my friends said, nope, there's no catch. There was a friend of mine had flown back from Dallas on a trip, and he said, yeah, me and my wife did that. There's no catch. We bought like a $5 thing or whatever, paid that off, and we got 60,000 points. My son of a beehive. I could have done that. I had a free flight over there.
Well, see, that's what with me. A friend of mine, Lloyd, he would have a business card, and he's putting, business expenses on that thing. And I'm talking $40,000 or, over a course of time or whatever. And shoot, he has enough points. He never pays that I know of anywhere he stays at.
Yeah.
And I went and got the credit card. And because I got the credit card, I think that they gave me 100,000 points, right off the bat. And then I accumulated another 100,000 in the meantime. And I had enough when I went out to Nobby for the first time that I didn't pay anything.
You see,
rooms are like 42,000 points per night is what it amounts to.
I might look for a deal with them. I fly American. I like American Airlines. It's convenient for me. I actually prefer flying to Dallas than Denver. there's two ways I could go. I could go United to Denver or American to Dallas. And usually when I fly, I even if it's in the wintertime, it's still better than taking a chance in Denver. Sorry, Brian. But I've been stuck in Denver before, but usually I can make it through Dallas with no problem. So I'm going to look on the deals that American has in the next few months. Maybe I could get some points or something.
Maybe can you go to their website and say, hey, can I sign up for this and get the
60? You know what? I haven't thought about that. So maybe
it's a sales pitch on the plane. Well, what happens if you go to their website and say, hey, we got this, for
the lady on, when she's on the intercom, she said, you can't get this deal anywhere but on this flight. You can't go to our website, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, man, they're really twisting you to get you to sign up, I don't know. I haven't looked into it, but I have plenty of time right now to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'll buy a Hilco extractor with it and write it off, or something. I don't know. Yeah. Hey, Brian, the other airport that's always under construction is Newark. I don't think I've never seen the road going to Newark or going around that airport not under construction. That thing is always under construction. But anyway, so I'm going.
That's great. I'm glad to hear
American Airlines has a city AA Advantage card.
Yeah.
75,000 bonus miles. Right now, it's for a limited time only.
What's the amount you got to buy?
That's what I'm getting ready to look at right now.
Probably you have to buy so much to get that points or something.
Yeah. You think about it. How much is 75,000 miles? $1,200 or something. So it's no big deal to them. So you have to spend a minimum
$5,000.
$5,000 minimum.
You get earn 75,000 American Airlines Advantage bonus miles after 5,000 in purchase within the first 5 months of account opening.
Oh,
I can do that in 2 days.
Yeah, but that's crazy. There's better deals than that, though. There's got to be.
Let's see. Then they have another one. The executive card. That's 70,000 miles. That's 7,000 purchases in the first 3 months.
Huh.
I don't know. Here lately, what I've been doing is like the insurance companies, they're always ripping you. I'm like, all right, I'll get you too. Instead of me paying the bill off, I use my credit card to pay the bill, and I run it through my credit card, and I get the points for, stays and all that stuff.
And then they have another one, earn 50,000 miles after 2,500 in purchases in the first 3 months of opening the account.
Wow.
I mean, I could do any of them with it, especially the business advantage one. All I got to do is pay for material with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've hit the limit. I've hit it right there.
So,
well, I'll figure something out. But man,
I like to go out there to Missouri's festival. That sounded like a nice small.
It was very nice.
A nice event that actually had some decent speakers and things.
Yeah, it was I sat and listened to Bob. I sat and listened to Corey. I think that was it. The other time I listened to those, Bob and Corey, and that was, and you know what? It's small enough. You just go up and talk to them out there in the lobby area, and it was great. Talked to Corey and his wife for a little while. Met Mark. I met Clay. Met Brian, Tom and Melissa. David, who's out in southern Missouri. Yeah, it was fun. It was really fun.
Well, that's the
Hey,
thing about it all is the camaraderie that we've developed here on these shows. And then, like I say, when we were able to actually meet each other,
mm,
for me, that really makes a big difference.
oh, I met JW. That guy, he's hilarious. And he lost his keys. He couldn't find his keys the whole conference. And then at the end, someone said, "Hey, they've got keys. Someone's got keys they found or whatever," and it was his keys. He thought he was going to have to, go back home and get a spare set of keys.
Hey, Matt.
Oh yeah, and Matt, I met Matt. Matt was my chauffeur. Matt picked me up at the airport. Matt drove me to Walmart to get a couple little supplies. Matt drove us to the dinner that night, and then Matt drove me back to the airport. It was awesome.
I guess we'll have to get Matt to drive me.
That's if he drives the canoe. I don't know if Matt's going to be driving the canoe all the way out there. Yeah. Oh, that was fun. That was a fun weekend. And boy, I got when I got off the plane in St. Louis, and I was waiting for Matt down at baggage claim. I was still inside the airport. And when I met up with Matt, we walked out and those doors open. That nice 30-degree wind chill wind nailed me. And I'm like, oh, I remember this when I lived in Missouri. It took me about 3 seconds to go, oh, yeah, I remember this.
I guess you don't get any weather like that out here, do you?
No. Oh, hell, there was still snow on the ground from a storm that had rolled through there a couple days prior and piled up in the parking lots and stuff. And, we don't get that right here. But it was fun.
Yeah, well, that's good. I'm glad to hear you're coming out.
Yeah.
I think you'll enjoy it. I mean, especially get there. You say you're coming out Wednesday, right?
Wednesday, yeah. Yeah.
Get there, let's say 3 in the afternoon or something like that.
Well, I hope I can. I think the earliest I could get there was 2:00. I don't know.
Do that.
So, yeah.
Do that, and then you can kind of get settled in and get rested up a little bit. And then wherever we finally find a place to have our show or our meeting, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Here come
Will. They're talking about these false scorpion mites and all this and that, and he's going treatment free, I guess, is what he said for 915, a 915 comment. So you'll have to scroll back up a little ways.
What is? I seen Tom talk about that on YouTube or Facebook, I guess it was.
Pseudoscorpion mite. So he says there are 6 other predator mites. Between the 7 species, those varroa mites will be lunch. So
you're actually putting a bug in the hive to eat the varroa mites?
You know what's funny?
Where did that come from?
Well, it's been around for a while. Those scorpion mites have been around for a while. Now, what's funny is on my feeder holes, on my lids, I use bricks. And so I'll move the brick around the hole. If it's hot, I'll open that brick up more where they could get a flow through that feeder hole. But when I lift that brick up, I see these little tiny mites scurrying around. And I've always wondered, I wonder if those are the scorpion mites or pseudoscorpion mites. I guess if I take a magnifying glass out there, I might be able to find out. But that apparently they'll attack the varroa and get rid of them.
Now I can't. What's the last name is Gardner? How do you pronounce the first name? Daariyon.
Darian.
All right, I'm gonna call you Gardner. All right. You're talking about that there deep frame isolation cage. Is it worth it? I just got back from Georgia and they had a couple new timing boxes down there.
Mhm.
And Mickey showed me they were using them. They got them from Better Bee. And I said, well, there's when you put that steel cap on the top, there's some holes in the corner there. And I said, them darn queens can get out. And he said, I thought the same thing. But he said they've been A-OK. So what it amounts to is you put a clean, empty frame in there with the queen on it, and you put it in there for 24 hours, and you pull that frame up out of there, pull the queen off, and you set that frame over here and next to the screen. And then you put another clean frame in there, and you put the queen back on there. And then after 4 days is when you can graft that frame. That times that egg right out to perfectly. Something I have often thought about, and whether you see what you guys think about this, if I take one of them frames, and let's say I want to requeen a hive, I put her on a frame, and she can't get out, and in 7 days, the rest of the egg population is, aged out. So they can't make any queen cells. But her pheromones are still kind of there in the hive. And if I pull her out of there at that point in time and I put another mated queen in a cage, for release, would that work? What I was getting at is if I take her out, in 7 days, I got to go through that hive, cut out all the queen cells, and then it's hopelessly queenless. And then you put your new queen in there. Then your acceptance rate is very high. So I'm wondering whether it's worth going through that process or not. Anybody ever try that?
Talking about acceptance rate, did anyone watch that video that Kent Williams did? I forgot who put it out. He was saying if you graft the eggs from the frame that you use as a builder, they know those are their sisters, and they will feed those before they feed a different egg.
Let me get this really. I was reading it. Run that by me again. You say what are they doing?
So, Kent was saying that let's say you pick a builder or a colony that you want to make into a builder. If you graft off of her eggs, they will accept those eggs. The accepted rate will be higher than if you went across the yard and grafted from another queen. Because those bees know those eggs are their sisters.
I've heard that. Whether it's true or not, I don't know.
Yeah, if that's true, that's crazy.
I don't know.
Mother Nature is a mad scientist, so I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't know about that.
So
I guess it depends on whether you grafting from a breeder queen or if you're grafting from one of your regular queens.
Well, it's a queen. If you're grafting from your breeder queen, they will accept them more than they would from a regular. It doesn't matter if it's whatever queen it is. If it's from their colony, they supposedly will accept those eggs more, or those larvae more than they would from a different queen.
I've heard it to where if you make the cell builder and you graft out of that cell builder and everything is in that one hive continually, it seems to be, or I've heard that people say that it's a higher acceptance rate.
And the bees know the difference between a Carney egg, an Italian egg, a Russian egg, and a Cordovan egg, whatever. They know the difference. Or not, I keep saying egg, I mean larva.
Yeah. Different breeds.
It's crazy.
I don't know. I don't have that much experience with all that. Only thing I can tell you is what I did this week was the hive, the hive right there, is where I got my grafting material from. I want her genetics. And the hive that I put it in had no queen for at least a week or more. And they were ready for anything, that kind of a thing. And I think that's the big key thing too, is that you got to have a hive that's hopelessly queenless.
Yeah.
And they'll accept anything you kind of give them and all that, as long. And then like also, like we said earlier, you got to go back, if you're putting in cat brood, make sure that there's no emergency cells being built, nix them before they get started.
Mm-hmm.
So Will, what's happening up in PA?
Oh, busy.
You've been busy, I think. I think you got queens you dropped, didn't you?
Yeah. I've been busy. Last weekend I went down and got I came across on Facebook Marketplace. I came across a bunch of 3/4 inch of that HDO plywood. So I went down and got a pickup truck load of that and sawing that up to make migratory lids with that. And in the meanwhile, I had Cohern. I bought 35 queens from them that I had bought months and months ago that landed. They were supposed to land Tuesday, and then because of some flooding, they didn't land till Wednesday. But so I requeened a bunch of I ended up requeening a bunch of stuff with that. So yeah, it's been pretty busy. So now
you're making up hives and putting these queens in, or are you pulling queens and putting these queens in?
Well, I might have got a little squirrely, but Monday I went in and I had those 32 packages that I got from Georgia when I was down there.
Yeah.
So I went into those 32 and I pulled the queen out of them with, a little bit of brood, just a real small split, and put them in a 5-frame newt box. And there was a bunch of brood and a bunch of population in there. So that's what I ended up putting those queens back into, because I wasn't sure what the queens were coming out of Georgia in the packages. And I'm kind of concerned with not knowing more about my queens and how good they are. So I felt the California Cohern queens were better. So I pulled them out, and now I have those nukes all building up all over again, with those Georgia queens in them. And I have the queens in, all the package bees that I took, and they should be released here. They should be released here by the end of the weekend. So
basically you took a package and split it. You put the package in on comb.
Yep.
Built up a certain amount.
Yep, build up to be pretty much most of a box of bees at this point.
But, a 5-frame box of bees, I guess.
Well, more. I mean, they're a 10-frame box.
Okay, so you kind of got them built up to about 10 frames, and then you split them again with these new queens.
Yes, I actually pulled the Georgia queen that was in the package originally out and made a split with that. And I put the Cohern queens from California into that old box. With all that population.
Cohern or Kona?
Cohern, whatever. I'm not sure what it is. So
I'm not either.
Kona, I think it's Kona.
Is it Kona?
I thought Kona was like Hawaii.
They're from Hawaii.
Oh yeah, Kona's Hawaii.
Well, they say California on them though.
Is it Koehen or something like that?
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah.
They've been around for a long time. So apparently they have good bees.
Somebody I was talking to here recently. Who was it? Wednesday night was my club meeting, and we had a guy from the Maryland State bee lab there, I guess you would call it. And they were requeening their hives at the lab, and they got queens from out in California. I think it is some lady out there. I've seen her picture in the ABJ and stuff like that, selling queens.
Yeah, she's always in.
Jackie, I think her name is.
Something, yep.
Yeah, anyway, they said I don't know whether they know whether she has nice queens or not. But anyway, that's was something that he was talking about. But
yeah, my idea being that I'm hoping to have I'm trying to pay attention to having better queens. And more recent queens, and being that I don't really know a whole lot about the Florida one or the Georgia ones that came in the packages, I'm just trying to have better queens out there is all. Know what I have where I have it.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at here. This is a recent picture of my line there, most of the hives. There's a bunch more the opposite direction. But the ones down there towards the field are the ones I've requeened about 4 of those and trying to grow up some of the smaller ones there from nukes from over winter. And I'm not really crazy. None of them are exciting me as far as the amount of brood that they're promoting in there. And that's where hopefully these queens that I'm grafting right now, I'm going to throw them in there. I'm going to replace those queens with these ones that I'm grafting and see what happens. And I've learned it's all about the queens as far as I can say.
That's what I'm learning too, is you got to have a good queen in there to do anything with it.
Queen is the engine of the hive. You got a crappy queen, you got a crappy hive.
Yep.
You got a great queen, you're going to have a great hive.
Oh yeah.
And you really, I don't know why it takes me so long to learn all those types of things. Even like with the cell builders, like we've talked about it tonight, and like Todd was saying, you got to shake more bees. And I've heard that and heard it, but it seems like when you experience it, then the light bulb comes on.
Yeah.
And then you understand what these other people have been talking about. And I don't know why we can't comprehend that.
Your builder has to look like, well, when you look in the builder in the bottom box where it's queenless, you want it so where you can't see top bars.
There you go.
That's it. And then
You can't see top bars, but then
you can't see the box either.
Yeah.
it's got to be like that box behind Bill there. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's when I was down at Bill's, he had 8 frames and you couldn't see the bars.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right,
you couldn't
Bill?
see the top of the box. You couldn't see anything.
Well,
Yeah.
then you put 6 pounds of bees in that baby, and then the whole front of the hive is covered with bees.
Yeah.
And you had that much bees in there.
If you get them that where they sense that they're overcrowded, that's going to trigger those nurse bees to start producing, or start thinking about revving up their pharyngeal glands and produce some royal jelly. So that overcrowdedness is the trigger. So you need to get
That's
that.
it.
Yeah, Jen and Brian, that is the right Cohern, or I don't know how you say it.
I saw that. That is right. Yeah.
That's the one. I bought Italians from them. So
I think it's Conan,
something
something like that. Yeah. They're up in Northern California.
Yeah.
They're I think they're on the second or third generation of beekeepers, so they've been around a long time.
That, and with the rainy days, I'm putting stuff together in the basement, getting ready for the next round of dipping. So I got a bunch of deep boxes I'm trying to chew through now. So
you remember the other night when Brian was on here talking about wanting those queens?
Yes. The guy in Colorado.
Yeah. Flower Street. So we called that company.
Oliveras?
Yeah.
Olivera.
I wasn't going to say the name, but
thanks. Sorry. Whoops.
But they wouldn't do it because there's that breed of queen. They are really, really, really running short on them. So there's something going on.
Well, that's what everybody wants. It's the Randy Oliver Golden West mite resistant bee, right? Best queen out there.
No,
Right?
I think it's popular.
No, it's not the best queen out there. There's better.
Well, I mean, it's popularity. You got to name.
Yeah,
but there's a name thing there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's name recognition.
Yep. Nike doesn't make the nicest sneakers, bud. Right.
Right.
Vietnam does. Well, that's the truth.
So
did you figure out
something for Brian?
Yeah. We actually got the okay from them. We're going to get them for him next spring. So
Is he going to get any of your ones for this year?
we don't know yet.
Okay.
He's going to get back to me.
Well, listen, you guys, watching you guys sit here snacking and stuff, it's got my tapeworm tapping on my belly, and I got to make dinner tonight. And I'm freaking starving. So I'm going to hit the road.
Around
Well, this is supper.
there.
That's what this is. This is supper. It's not a snack.
Yeah, I've been sitting here
Whatever it is.
snacking for 45 minutes watching you guys. So.
My tapeworm is just banging my belly. I gotta feed it. I forgot I'm making chicken tonight, but I forgot what I want to make. So, but I'll listen. I'll be downstairs listening to it on the phone.
All right, Todd. Well, good to hear you. I'm glad that you came in. I haven't seen you for a while, and
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that you're coming to Nobby.
Yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait to walk around. You know what? I'll wear a pair of tennis shoes out. Yeah, I'd like to. I mean,
well, you can for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
All right.
I'll talk with you guys later.
All right. Good to see you, man.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
See you, Tom.
So you got how many hives you got now since you split?
Well, I split. I picked up a couple of swarms, which I wasn't into swarms, but I'm kind of getting the opportunity, so I'm taking advantage of it. I'm just under 100 right now, so
Everybody needs free bees.
yeah, but I never know what you're bringing home. You know what I mean? But
That's why I got a quarantine yard.
yeah, that's what I need. I'm right in the middle of come Sunday. Before I pulled those queens and splits out of those package bees, you know, they were into like their 4th brood cycle since I got them, 5th brood cycle. So like they're going to start to get pretty full. So I'm getting ready to move them out, and I'm going to put a second deep on them. And I'm hoping to demarree a bunch of them once I get them settled in their yards. So that's I'm thinking Sunday, Monday, I'm going to try and get all those out and get them settled in my other apiaries. So I'm excited about that.
Top bar hives. What kind of
Yeah.
top bar? Cathedral or straight?
I wouldn't recommend a top bar myself. I would buy, if I was going to buy anything similar to that, would be like Ricky Rourke's hive, which is more of a, what is it called?
Lanes?
No, it's a long lang hive, as they call it.
Yeah, you can do a long lang or you can do it lay-ins.
Long lang, you're more closer to the mainstream when it comes to frames and stuff.
Yeah.
I know a friend of mine here, she has one. She will zip tie, I'll say, 2 deeps together.
Yep.
That way, when let's say she wants to extract honey, you cut the zip tie and you can extract in a regular extractor, nothing fancy.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. That's my recommendation. If you're buying a top bar, which is going to be on an angle like that, you have
Cathedral style.
Well, cathedrals to me is like this, a dome thing.
Yeah,
But
the bottom of it goes across, comes down, and across the bottom.
You got
Like
those
a hex.
type, and then one I got here that we made for a lady is a bar straight across with basically a feeding trough angle. And the comb would be angled. If you try to flip that up, there's no support for that comb. It'll fall over. It's more of a crushing strain if you're trying to harvest any honey. So that's like you're going backwards in technology instead of forwards. And it's, to me, it's just top bar is just, I wouldn't recommend it for anybody.
I mean, top bars have
especially
their
a
place.
first year solo. Holy cow!
You need to learn on a long lang,
Yep.
and once you get that down, say after 2 or 3 years, then do a top bar, do a split, and do a top bar. Problem with the top bar hive is they all have their uses, but the top bar is hard to get bees to fill it out, to grow in it. because they want to go naturally. They don't want to go out long ways. So it's harder to get them to build in it.
Exactly. And another thing is just like Roy down here says, bees grow vertically. They don't grow horizontally very easily.
Right.
And you'll find a top bar, most cases, they'll die in them things over wintertime.
Now, I've got a layings hive that I'm going to set up this year. I've had it for a couple of years now. I'm just sitting in the building out here. And I did the research on them, but everybody I talked to said when you put bees in them, you got to put at least 3 to 10 pounds in them to get them to build out. Top bar hives, layings hives, long langs are good for somebody that's older, got back problems like you and me, Charlie. They only have to lift one frame at a time. So it's easier. It has its uses. People use them for queen rearing as well.
That's what Lee does, Kodiak Farms. He's got a long lang set up as you can divide it out into nuke size hives, multiple nuke size hives. Ricky Rourke, Horizontal Bees, sells them.
Yep.
And I think you can probably have 5 or 6 nukes in that one box.
Yep.
And that's what kind of Lee does with it. He'll grow his highs up and then transfer over. But like I say, in general, a long lang, you're still using the Langstraw frames.
Yep.
You can still use if you got them set up the way I get it. If there's some lang, what's the one that you were saying, that long layings hive?
Layings hive.
They have
double medium together. It works out to be 2 medium Langstroth frames, bottom to bottom, and they're long ways hanging down. But it uses foundation.
Yeah, I don't know. Roy there, like you say, he's up there. He has a few of them. Gardner, you have to take and talk with him. He could tell you more about it than I can. I got a bunch of them in my basement if I like to sell for cheap. And they're not all finished either, basement sale, fire sale. They don't sell, they're going to go into fire.
Yeah. But DC's right. I mean, if you want to start with a long lang, start with a long hive, start with a long lang, get it down, learn about it, and just learn that way, then move into the different top bar hives if you want to, because you got to learn your lessons, make your mistakes on something easy, then move into the difficult. Don't start.
Joey's got a couple long lang hives. He likes them.
Yeah.
It's just another style of hive. And like you say, you kind of, if you're a first year beekeeper, kind of go with regular Langstroth. I would recommend get that. Like you say, Bill says, get your.
I'm missing an opportunity.
What?
Yes, you are.
What?
There's a comment on here.
Yeah, Will, were your ancestors old-timey dentist? Yeah, I should have been a dentist. I do have a daughter that's going out to be a hygienist, a dental hygienist there. So
you missed your calling, Will.
Yeah, I know.
Norman, okay.
And it'd play right into being feeding people honey, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right.
Yep.
I feel what was the one? I think it was on the Little Rascals. It was a scene where they were in school, and Spanky was asked, "Well, what's 3?" They were doing mathematics. What's 3 and 1? He says, "Oil." And then And something about an acre. And I says, yeah, I got an acre right here, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, like I say, I think if you learn the skill of beekeeping first, especially with long lang, you have a lot more people that can help you with that.
Yeah.
And then transfer over to a long, I still say a long lang and not a top bar.
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of, you know, 15 years ago is when that's how I got started in beekeeping, or 16 years ago. The lady who we were building these top bar beehives for got me interested in it, in beekeeping in general. And then I decided I'm going to go with the mainstream, which is i.e. Langstroth and all that. And you don't see the top bar beehives as much anymore. You don't hear people talking about it. They've all kind of switched over to the long lang. It's a little bit more friendly as far as special equipment and things like that.
Right.
A guy once gave me I think it was some pretty good advice. He said, run standard shit. You know what I mean? Don't get into all the exotic and crazy, and, you know,
Yep.
stick with, and that's what I'm doing. I'm running 10 frame brood boxes. I'm running 10 frame mediums, and I run a 5-frame nuke, and everything I can interchange. You know, I can interchange all my brood box stuff frame wise, and my honey supers are honey supers, and that's what, just kind of how it is. And I think that was pretty good advice, because there is so much exotic stuff out there that you could do.
Well, years ago, I didn't like deep frames. I found out how heavy they were, you know, when I first started. Well, then I thought about going to 8-frame. Well, 8-frame even today is a little bit exotic, I'll say, or sideways.
Yep.
Whereas you can go any store anywhere, and I can guarantee you they all sell 10-frame equipment.
Yep.
Whether it be queen excluders, boxes, or whatever. As soon as you do 8-frame, you're limiting your availability of equipment and all that stuff.
Now, Charlie, your ears should have been ringing last night about this time. I was talking to another buddy, and we were talking about how going with all mediums for everything, interchangeability of everything, you know, and lighter and smaller, but 10 frames still. But it's, you know, the interchangeability where now if I get, you know, if I get plugged out with nectar, it's not like I can just push them up into a honey box. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh-oh, Charlie.
You
said something controversial.
Yeah. You know, Todd.
He said almost exotic, right?
He runs 8s and he's not exotic. Well, he's out there in California. You got to be exotic to live there, right? Oh my!
I'm not going to touch that one.
Yeah, I'm just going to leave California alone.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
Yep.
Roy says, "Go back to cooking, Todd."
So, how's your Demarys doing, Charlie?
Demarys. Oh, they're doing great.
Are they? Yep. You're making honey?
Yeah, I was until this week.
Yeah.
When you got 4 days worth of rain, and then I've had, you know, rain, a little bit of sunshine. Like yesterday, I did my video on it's Thursday. Yeah, it was Thursday. Yeah, Thursday is when it was. I lucked out. Had a club meeting Wednesday night. I went ahead and went to that, and then Thursday the sun came out in the afternoon. I was like, yay. And I said, I have to be in that cell builder. It was like we were talking about. I don't care if it's raining or whatever. Got to get those cells out of that damn thing and get them into the incubator. And hey, Eugene. And overwinter great in Kentucky. That's great. I mean, I have no problem with 8-frame. You know, it's whatever you like to do. I think in a cell builder, I think 8-frame would be perfect. I feel like when it comes to a cell builder or something like that, it's the same principle as I look at the nuke, the 5-frame nuke. You want to compress those bees into a small space so you make them perform whether it be making a queen cell or draw wax. Like I say about drawing wax, I'll draw wax out in a 5 frame way easier and better than I can a 10 frame. Robert Demereed, his hives, it's a lot of extra work, but the bees are a lot of work no matter what. Well, it is too. I mean, I have to say one thing. It's like them hives. Let's see, where are we at? Right there. I got 4 honey supers. Purple box is the brood. White, yellow, and white are the honey supers. And then the purple on top is the brood box. I take that hive lifter, I can pull all those. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 boxes. That's why I've got them 2 big long poles up there that they put on that machine to catch them boxes, because they'll kind of lean back a little bit when I pull that whole stack off as one unit. But I don't have all the bees up in the air, and they're not mean. And then I go in the bottom and I pulled my graph frames out, that this past Saturday, and that I just let that hive lifter sit there. I took my frame to the house, I graphed it, came back, dropped my frame in my cell builder, put the yellow frame, the graph frame back into that hive right there, put it all back together. And when you're doing the demery, the hive lifter is, I'll say, almost a must.
Oh, yeah.
As far as saving your back, because when you're pulling all them boxes apart, you're making them bees mad. You're upsetting them. With the hive lifter, you pull it off as a unit. You don't upset them. They all stay in the box. They don't come rolling out of the bottom. They all come. I've seen them. They all fly up in there and hang up in there. And all. And let's see. George, he has layings, hives.
Yeah.
And they're good for older hobbies. Absolutely, George. Most are not flexible enough to help you. Yes, that's what I've been saying, is that they went from the top bar and people have migrated to the lands because it's sort of middle ground. You still have the Langstroth frames, but you don't have to lift anything. And I think it just works better and all that. But anyway, yeah, they're doing great. I mean, my first 4 hives right there are my best hives. They're making the most honey, the most brood, and they got good queens in there. The rest of them are mediocre. Queens are okay. I requeened 4 of those ones out on the end out there. Most of them. 2 of them were actually queenless, I found. And so those queens didn't last a year. They're about like Brad down at Cajun Homestead. He gets about 18 months, a year and a half out of them, and they're dead. That's why he requeens every fall.
Yeah, you got to consider who you're getting them from, what kind of laying pressure you got on them, and everything else here in the mid-Atlantic state. Like myself, I put a lot of laying pressure on the queens in the spring. And, we get a good flow like this year. There's been a lot of laying pressure on the queens this year to make sure that she keeps up with the need for the bees.
Well, she was kind of cute there, Brian.
Hey, Bill, how late are you going to have queens available this year?
Me?
Probably September.
Okay.
But it's going to start dwindling off after the end of July. So.
Yeah.
So if I don't get deep into grafting, queens could be available the second week of July.
Yeah, they could be.
I figure if everything goes well weather-wise and whatever, and drone-wise, because I got drone frames in my hives and stuff, and they're making drones. They're utilizing those frames. I figure May, June, and July. That's pretty much what everybody's told me around here where I'm at. And after that, things kind of fall off, your drone population falls off, and
Yeah, it's all
you're pretty much done for the season.
yeah, it's all because of the dragonfly migration and the birds.
Okay.
So
All that.
I'm just thinking about when I pull honey, there in July, making a last split and being done from there. And,
yeah.
Whether I'm going to raise those queens or whether I'm going to buy them.
Yeah, we don't split anything after the end of July because if we do, it's just not going to make it.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know whether I would wait that long or do it that late.
Well,
I'm going to split right after I pull honey.
If we split in July, it's for a reason. Typically, by the end of August, we've already combined back everything that was weak or we didn't think would make it. We've combined with other hives.
Yeah.
So
Back.
But it's a guessing game this year. The whole thing's been a guessing game this year. I can't believe what we've gone through this spring. But hey, we're out of a drought, so that's the good part about it. I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I've been hearing people say it, but it's just really starting to make sense to me. They say that the average temperature or these average weather conditions are just the middle ground between two extremes. You know what I mean? And it's the truth. I mean, I'm looking, I talked to you guys about that average in my area. First frost is like October 10th.
Yeah.
But that could be 3 weeks in either direction. You know
it
what
could
I mean?
be. Yeah, you're right. So that acre and a half of ground I had worked up out in front of the house.
Mm-hmm.
I went through and I planted those sunflowers.
Yeah.
Every one of them's coming up.
Well, that's awesome. That's great.
So
bee food.
That's right.
Are you going to make, are they for oil or are they for bird seed or what? I don't remember.
Once I get my 60 pounds back out of them, I'm going to bag them and sell them to either plant or for bird seed.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm probably going to buy a bag of bird seed, just the small millet and stuff like that, and mix these seeds in with it.
Yep.
And sell some small bags of bird seed or, stuff like that.
Just to recoup your cost on your seed.
Yeah. Just to recoup that and the cost of diesel fuel to put it in the ground.
Yep. That's awesome.
Yeah. But I finished working that up and basically the ground was almost white between the lime and the fertilizer I put down. It was almost white.
Wow.
And then I turned it again and worked it into the ground real good.
Well, this rain's working out to be perfect for you with that, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It hit just right. It was warm today. It's going to be warmer this weekend, and first part of next week, it's going to be warm. And then they're calling for rain again. Where's my weather?
I know our hay here has really jumped here in the last week.
Yeah.
So they're calling for rain again next Wednesday, the 21st.
So your sunflowers ought to do great.
Oh, yeah. And then the last week of the month, 26th through the 31st, it's rain every day.
Wow.
I'm going to tell you what, man, walked out in the hay field the other day. Hay is up to my hip.
Wow. That's great.
It's thick. It's going to be a good crop of hay when we cut it.
Yeah, I'm only seeing knee deep up here, but we're a couple weeks behind you. So,
yeah. Then the first 2 weeks of June, it's going to be warm. So they're really grass and corn and soybeans are going to be jumping here the first 2 weeks of June.
Yep.
So
Yeah, my son's thinking about cutting a little bit of hay here, maybe this tomorrow, maybe. We got about a 3-day window there, but it's some stuff that he rented. It's real thin stuff. Something he could cut and get it dry and round bale it.
Yeah, it's a tune-up.
Just getting there, making sure everything's ready to rock.
Yeah, he's going to have to test out that new mower.
Yeah, he's probably going crazy to get that thing out.
Oh, I'm sure he is.
So, but yeah, like I say, when it comes to my queen cells and my builder, I'm really super happy.
Yeah, I watched your video. That looked great.
Yeah, it did. It turned out good. So I know you're happy with that one. That result, weren't you, Charlie?
Absolutely. Well, two things. I got great acceptance on my graphs, and the knowledge base of actually understanding how to set up that cell builder to where it will actually work for you. You know, getting the right amount of bees in a hive, like you were saying, you know, dumping those extra nurse bees in there. Where the Demery has helped out immensely this year, where I can skim some brood frames from those Demeries. I can skim nurse bees from those Demeries, and I don't have to tear a hive apart. It's all in the top box. It's right there for, you know, easy access and all. And just I've had, you know, I got nukes in last year. They all came in pro nukes. Having pro nukes around to use as sort of like a toolbox, really.
Yep.
You could throw your tools in there and use them as a toolbox, or you could throw bees in there and they won't, you can just use them as, you know, like a bucket and dump them out. You could,
It's funny you say about how flexible the Demeries are and how much of a tool they are, because I ended up with a couple of queens left over, and that we actually pulled out of another hive, long story short. But I ended up with 2 queens that I needed to do something with, and I didn't really want to keep them for long. I wanted to get them in a colony. You know, I drove up to my local yard, and I knew I had 2 strong Demeries running. I pulled out 2 frames out of the top that still had, you know, were still at least half full of brood that was, you know, starting to hatch. Dropped them into a nuke, dropped the queen in on them. You know, it was just, it's so nice. It's so nice having a resource there that's so easy to tap when you need it.
I mean, you can use it as a regular nuke, or you can use
Yep.
it as a catch for a swarm someplace. You can close them up, you know, the entrances, stuff like that. And Roy was saying about, I helped him out getting the right age grafting for on a previous chat. Yeah, anybody else in here that I don't know, I get to thinking about things like this as I'm working, and where you get those folks out there that get up in front of a class, and to me, I think they're just talking about whatever information they read out of some bee book.
Yep.
And I found that 99% of the bee books out there are not all that accurate in certain aspects, there's a lot of, they're like Swiss cheese.
They're lacking detail.
There's a lot of holes of lack of detail in them things.
Yeah.
That's absolutely for sure.
Yep.
But, you know, they'll say, you know, yes, I got to thinking about this, and I said, you know what? There's 2 timelines. There's the biological timeline for the bee when the queen lays that egg on day 1, and if it's in, let's say, a cell cup, she lays it on day 1, and in 9 days, yes, that queen cell or swarm cell will be capped. And then there's the timeline for grafting. And this is where like I said in my video, I try to make things, I could never wrap my head around all them different numbers in grafting. So I come up with my own system. It's more or less, I just simplified the system. The first thing is, you're not looking for eggs. You're not looking for big larvae and a frame to graft from. The first thing you're trying to find is jelly. Bees don't put jelly in a cell unless there's a larvae there. That's the first thing you got to remember. If you find jelly in a cell and I'm out there with my veil on, with my regular reading glasses that I wear all day long. If I can't see any larvae floating in that jelly and there's a group of cells like that, that's what I want to graft out of, because when you put your magnification on, then you'll be able to see that cell or that larvae. If you see a speck in that jelly, and you can kind of tell, you sort of kind of say, yeah, that looks like a very small larvae down there, that's also good to graft. And once you get to the point where, oh yeah, there's a larvae in there, well, it's too old, and that's how I went to Kent Williams back in 2019. I went to the honey show in Knoxville, Tennessee, and he tried to say, find an egg and then come back in 3 days and it'll be hatched, and put a mark on the frame and triangulate and all this stuff. And I'm like, I did that. And guess what? When the time I got back in 3 days, went to that frame that I marked, those larvae were as big as an earthworm in there. And it was, beyond, way beyond you, because you can't tell within plus or minus an hour how old an egg is. And so I came up with that idea with the jelly in the frames, and that's the easiest way to figure out. Can you graft an egg? Not that I know of. Can you tell me how old that egg is? Is it 12 hours old? Is it 2 hours old? They'll say, well, day 1, they're sticking up straight. And day 2, they're kind of bent. And day 3, they're laying on their side in the bottom of the thing, getting ready to hatch. They usually hatch in 3 to 3.5 days is what I've been read and told. Nobody can sit there and tell me exactly when that egg it is. That's where the pros use timing boxes in order to evaluate all that stuff. And so that's where I came up with the idea. Okay, I found out that the day you graft and the day you put that frame in that cell builder, that's day 1. And if you watch, I've got, I don't know why they call it this, but I got a paper here from one of these queen rearing calendars that you get off the internet you can use from a club. Actually, this one here, I believe, is located in Canada. And it'll tell you, queens, the day I put in the day I graft on Saturday, and then it's, and day 9, which is actually 6 days later, by the way they count it, is when it's capped. And then as I put the cells that are capped in the incubator on Thursday, starting today, which is Friday, next Thursday will be 7 days later, and the queen's going to be emerging. Now now when you say that, that could be plus or minus 6 hours. I've had them emerge, depending on how old that larvae is. Not every larvae is going to be exactly the same age. And so I just say, 1 through 6 and then 1 through 7. But if you want to put the cell in a queen rearing or a mating box, I would put it in there 2 days sooner. So I would put it in, I would take it out there. If I put the cells in on Thursday, and Tuesday of next week, I would take those cells out and put them in a queen rearing box or a mating box, and then they'll hatch out, because they might hatch out in a day and a half. They might hatch out in 2 days. You never know. I've had them do that and all. I had one hive in the or one cell in the incubator. Everybody else hatched out. And I said, well, that's got to be a dud. And I went down there. I left it in there for a couple more days. And I would go down there every morning or noon and evening or whatever and just kind of check. And sure enough, about a day and a half later, we had a queen emerge out of that. That's how old that larvae was. Or young, how young the larvae was. So that's just try to make it as easy as possible when it comes to this and all. Anyway, exciting. Yes, I am. I'm ecstatic about my queen rearing. Thanks, Bill, for on the video being good. I'm going to try to make a few more here. Hopefully, maybe tomorrow, if we get decent weather, kind of go through the maintenance of the cell builder, or at least the queenless cell builder. You can keep adding brood to that throughout the year or season, and it'll be fresh enough. Now, I think Brad from up at Face Apers, he talked about, I'll have to ask him about it, is where after so long, let's say after so many grafts, he will move that hive 50 feet down the line, someplace in another place in the hive where I think the way I got it was that way he puts a box where the hive was, and the foragers will go back to that. And then he'll have young nurse bees continuously in that cell builder hive. Highland says, Jason Crispin, yeah, I used to, has a good queen grafting rearing series. I watched that, but there's still a lot of questions that I had with that. Now, Bill, you know, I've seen these ones where they take a nuke and then they have a box underneath of it, and it's like a medium that's screened off, and they'll have a wet sponge in there, and they'll say I think they said they would lock those bees up in there for so many days. I'm not sure exactly what they were trying, whether they were trying to keep the bees in the hive or what. I forget how it was. Yep, I'm going to try to use AprilGuard this year too, Todd. I just have to experiment with it. You know, that's like
going to be my move after I pull honey.
Yeah, yep. And it's just like some of the folks in here. I know Darren from Pennsylvania Beekeeper. He had never used Formic Pro, and he was kind of scared about it, but I think it worked out for him. It's a learning experience. You just have to kind of take a leap, of educated leap, as far as knowing when to do it, the temperatures, making sure you're within parameters or maybe less than what they say.
Yep.
Temperature wise, humidity wise, things like that. You know, Formic Pro, I can tell you, you wanted 80 degrees or less, not 85, like the paper says. You want low humidity. They don't even talk about that. I've talked to Nod about that, and they say it doesn't make a difference. Well, I disagree with them there.
Yeah, it does make a difference, and they are aware that it does make a difference.
Well, then stand on 2 feet and come out and admit it, you know?
Yeah. Well, they have to stick with their research. That's what they have. They have to toe the line. So. There's Phil. Long time no see, Phil.
Robert out there, what's he doing? He had two queenless
hives
on top of a virgin hive.
Put top entrance next to the bottom entrance. It migrated, just an experiment. Yeah, some of them will migrate. Yep. And once that pheromone exchanges, they bring that pheromone back and exchange it. Then you can take the separation out.
Or is he say he's got 3 different boxes on there, and he's got a virgin in the bottom. I wonder if he's got queen excluders in between them.
I don't know. Virgin can go through a queen excluder.
Yeah. I guess what I'm getting at is the pheromone smells and all that kind of stuff. I would think because they're all queenless.
Yeah.
And if it's a virgin, they don't smell her like a regular queen.
No, they just think she's another bee until she goes and gets mated.
Another bee, and I don't think that they care less about each other at that point in time. I think it would all just merge into one great big hive.
You would think, wouldn't you?
That's what I would think.
Yeah.
It's the way I kind of got it.
You know, I took those cell builders down at the store where we dropped our graphs.
Yeah.
I took that screen board out. Man, you talk about a bunch of confused bees, and they're still confused. They're still trying to get in the back. Yeah, I've still got bees trying to get in the back of the hive.
All right. Why is this thing not coming up on the other side?
Not touching that one.
I'm trying to highlight it if it ever comes up. Seems like one side's quicker than the other side. I don't see it. Where is it at?
Yeah, I've got a nutrition class tomorrow, Will.
Oh, really?
Yep.
For the store?
Yep. Yep. Then in June, I've got 2 classes. So
Yeah, don't you have a bee business class coming up?
in July,
Is that when that is?
beekeeping. Yep. And then August is fall and winter management.
Mm.
Yeah, I've got honey harvesting and treatments in June.
Okay.
Queen bee. I think I got to evaluate. I'm going to go through these hives here, maybe Sunday or whenever I get some decent weather to get into them. And yes, I'm going to evaluate. I already, like I say, on the end of this row here, there were 4 hives. 2 of them I found to be queenless. 2 of them I pulled the queen. And yeah, I'm going to try to requeen them with my queens that I grafted. And then I think tomorrow I'll be close. I don't know. I mean, if I graft tomorrow, next Thursday, the queens will be coming out of the the cell builder, and cells will be going back in the cell, or not the cell builder, the incubator. And I'll be taking them queens. In the meantime, I'll have to set up some mating boxes, and I'll be taking them queens out. So I think I can get all that done as long as the weather cooperates. That's my problem.
How many frame mating boxes you setting up?
2. Oh, how many boxes?
2.
All?
No, how many frames? Frame
There are 2
mating box.
I have 2 frame mating boxes.
Okay.
I built them, I don't know, 6 or 8 years ago.
Okay.
I don't know. They're just full size. You know, I made them to where they're individual boxes, full size frames. A lot of folks, they talk about putting like a deep box or whatever and dividing it out and all that stuff and having 4 different holes.
That's a popular thing right now is those, what do they call them? Those
Queen castles.
Castles. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, back in 10 years ago or more, a guy was doing all that. And they were putting cells in and dividing it. And he lives in Texas now. He quit beekeeping, I believe. And he wouldn't have a lot of acceptance rate, was a little on the lower side. And one of the things that a friend of mine did, he had an observation hive and it had multiple queen cells in there, swarm cells. He's watching TV and all of a sudden he says he heard one of those queens in the cell
chirping. Yep. Yep.
And about that time, he said that hive went berserk. And not the queen, but the worker bees went around and ate out the sides and stung all those other queens.
Yep. Yep.
because she says, I'm coming out.
Yep.
And he says, aha, that was an aha moment for him. He says, if I put a cell in 4 different compartments and compartment whatever starts chirping, those other bees in them other compartments can hear her.
Boy, that's a good point.
They're going to kill that cell.
That's a great point. Wow. All these guys doing all this exotic stuff with these freaking queen castles.
Well,
and short frames.
Castle was one box and it's easy to make, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But what happens when the one queen chirps and she kills the other 3?
Yeah.
You know,
Well, when their worker bees kill the other 3. Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
They heard the other one chirp.
Yeah.
So that's why I made individual mating boxes and all. Now, on the other hand, did that really hold water? I'm not sure, because you got to. I'm down in Georgia, and they got a small.
Yeah,
hive. They're small. They're not.
And they're working.
And they're making. They put 2 queens in there, one on each side of the wall. But they only have a small amount of bees, so do they have experienced that problem? I don't know. I don't know if they do or not. You know, that was just some experience that we heard years ago.
Yep. I've been putting cells in 5-frame little nukes, and it works. You know what I mean? It's a couple extra frames to look at, but it's no big deal. My theory is staying with standard stuff, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I had my 2-frame mating boxes, and I put cells in. And, you know, I put them in about 2 days before they hatch, because you don't know whether it's a day and a half from hatching or 2 days from hatching.
Yep.
And then when I do that, some people say, well, just put them in the top. And yeah, you can do that. Or what I always try to do was I looked at that one frame that might have some brood on there, cat brood, open larvae. I stuck that cell right there, right either in the middle of that or off to the side of that. So if it got a little cool that night, all the nurse bees would come there and cover that cell up along with the rest of the brood and keep it warm and keep it warm. Now you can put your 2 frames here, and that cell with that flange is designed to sit between 2 frames, and you can do that. But if your cell is about yay long and the bar is just about the same width or same thickness, so they're not going to go up there and huddle up around that thing. So that's why I always put it that way.
So, well, guys, I think I'm going to jump. I got an early day tomorrow.
Well, it's 10:27. It's time to shut down, guys. And so until next time, hopefully we'll see everybody next Friday night and Monday night at 8 o'clock on Bill's channel, Bees All Day. And Nancy will be on the 6:30 on Wednesdays. I'm not sure whether she'll be on this coming Wednesday. Every other Wednesday, I think she's doing it. And so until next week, everybody have a great time. Hope everybody can get into their hives, make sure everything is A-OK, and all that kind of stuff. And then Queen Bee said they had castles and never really had any problems. Well, I'm not saying they did. I mean, I've never had a castle. So, I mean, I think that my tapeworm says bye. Okay. All right, Todd. Yeah, it's, it's all what you get used to. It all, I'm just telling what somebody told me. I've never used a queen castle. So,
yeah.
So we'll see y'all next week.
Good night.